I want you to rate a Broadway performance by the following Hollywood celebrities.
Okay.
From 1 to 5.
Oh, all right.
But Amanda Peet.
Oh, gosh. Not high. I saw her in a couple of things. I'm thinking of now, like Barefoot in the Park.
Wasn't she in one of the Neil LaBute plays?
She was actually gets a 3-4.
Yeah.
And Barefoot in the Park, I'll give her a 2.
Yeah. Okay, Katie Holmes.
Yeah. Not great. Okay, we don't need a number.
Kieran Culkin.
Oh, well, he's terrific. He knows how to be seductive as an actor. He's wonderful on stage.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
I think he's terrific. I mean, maybe I'd give him a 4.5 just for sometimes a little actory. He's always good.
Sienna Miller.
I did see her in After Mr. Lily, it was called. 3.
Scarlett Johansson.
She's good. I'll say 4.
Michelle Williams.
Let's see. I give her close to a 5. I think she's one of the most extraordinary actresses, and I think she didn't get the kinds of reviews that I think that she deserved in Cabaret or in Blackbird.
She's had to play these super heavy roles, which must be hard to do every night.
Yeah, I think it probably took a toll on her, but I think she's wonderful.
I'm Jill Demling, and this is Going Rogue. Today's guest is writer Adam Green. As the son of Tony-winning Broadway legends Phyllis Newman and Adolph Green, Adam has Broadway in his blood. As Vogue's resident theater critic, Adam chronicled stars, stories, and standing ovations from center stage to backstage, interviewing titans of the West End and the Great White Way. So curtains up. Let's listen as Adam Green goes rogue. And if you want to see the images we discussed today, head to our Instagram, goingrogue.podcast. Hi, Adam.
Hello there.
How are you?
I'm very well. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on Going Rogue. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
I am thrilled to talk to you because I miss you. Really loved when we worked together and we got to talk more and hang out more. And so this is a nice chance to relive that.
Yeah, I feel like when we were on shoots together, we couldn't even really hang out because I was trying to like hide you.
Yeah, I had to pretend to be like a gopher or something.
Exactly.
And, I had to carry around like a tray of cardboard cups of coffee and stuff.
It's been so long. It's crazy. It's been so fun actually doing this to not just reminisce, but to see people I may have had no other reason to see. But when I said, will you come on my podcast? And just being able to catch up with 25 years of my life, basically. And I was trying to think about when we first met. I know we had some fun times together. I remember us having drinks with Justin Bartha. I can't remember what play he was in.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I remember where we were seated and what the bar looked like, but I can't remember the play that he was in. I remember he was sitting on a sofa in the play. It might have been Jesse Eisenberg play or something like that, but
it was Jesse Eisenberg. I think it was Jesse Eisenberg's play.
Yeah, I just remember they were probably roommates, and I just remember a couch.
And a lot of dope smoking. And,
yes, I'm sure he was the irresponsible roommate or something.
I think it was at the Cherry Lane Theater.
Yes.
Okay, now it's all coming back to me.
Okay, but when I was thinking about this podcast today, and I Googled you just to get some background info I might not have known, like that you went to Harvard, which I'm sure you told me at some point, but I forgot. We'll get back to that. But it says theater critic. And critic is just a word I would never associate with you because you're so nice. And for some reason, that just makes me think critique, or I don't know why I have a negative connotation, but do you think of yourself as a theater critic?
No, not really. I wasn't even officially given that title, but I think I was always referred to, like Anna at Vogue always referred to me as, this is our theater critic. So I just went along with it. But I think Vogue's way of criticizing was more by exclusion than by criticizing. I mean, there was not going to be 8 pages of this season's, shittiest look. They're not going to do that. If you didn't make it in, that was the criticism.
That's genius. That is so true. Oh my gosh. Is there a difference between a theater writer and a theater critic?
Huge difference. I mean, I saw my role by and large as a booster of things that or that collectively we at the magazine expected to be good based on any number of factors. And so it was to be a booster rather than sometimes we would turn out to be wrong and I would go and see it. And had I been a critic, it would have not have gotten a good review, but I wasn't. That wasn't my job. I did it a few times, like online. I did some reviews and I didn't really want to be that person. I certainly have opinions and there are things that I really dislike and that can make me even kind of angry, but I didn't want to be the one publicly making people who were trying to make good work to make them feel shitty about themselves.
Yeah, you weren't giving thumbs up or thumbs down.
No.
And you never did that for any other magazine, the actual theater critic role?
No, I was asked to review a book a long time ago for the New York Observer, and I really hated the book. But I'd met the guy who wrote it, and he's a really nice guy, and I just thought, you know what? I didn't want to trash the guy. I mean, I didn't like the book. I really, really didn't like the book. But he was a nice guy, and I just thought, I'm not going to be the guy that says the words that are going to make him feel shitty. I don't need to do that.
Right. This is digressing, but I just remember when I spoke with Jonathan and I brought up when he did that first interview with Beyonce and gave her film such a bad review when it was really a profile. And my friend worked at the studio and she's like, Jill, she got mad at me. I can't believe you did that. And I'm like, I didn't, the movie was crap. It was Screen Gems, but I was like, Jonathan, why did you have to do that? And he even now said, listen, if it's that bad, I can't ignore it. You know?
I mean, I guess what I would probably do is just not talk too much about the film. I felt like if we were doing, again, this was very specifically for Vogue, if we're doing a cover story of somebody, it's not because we're like saying, hey, they're in a really shitty movie. So I would find polite ways. I mean, I think it only happened like once where the film of who I was writing about, it was really not good. And I just described the plot of the film and didn't really get into my opinion of it.
Yeah, I'll get into that more later with some more questions about exactly how you do what you do, because I'm fascinated. I never knew how fascinated I was and how many questions I had until I was like, I need Adam on. But let's start from the beginning, because I think it's important for the younger listeners to learn how someone got to where they are, especially those who are thinking about pursuing a career like yours or writing for magazines in general. And you have a very incredible backstory. So can you start by telling our listeners who your parents are?
Well, my father was Adolph Green, and already tell how old he would have been by the fact that his name was Adolph, which is not a name that you don't meet a lot of kids. My daughter's in daycare. There's no Adolphs there, no Heinrichs, no. But my father, Adolph Green, was a Broadway lyricist, and he wrote musicals, and he also wrote screen musicals for Hollywood with a partner named Betty Comden, who many people assumed was my mother, but was not my mother. Yeah, they had a singular collaboration in that they worked together for almost 60 years. And his first Broadway musical was On the Town, which was also the first Broadway musical for Leonard Bernstein and Jerome Robbins. And they were all in their 20s when they did it. And then he wrote movie musicals. Probably the most famous is Sing in the Rain. So, yeah, so I grew up around the theater and going to the theater. And my mother was Phyllis Newman, and she was an actress who don't know how remembered she is these days, but that's all right. So, yes, my childhood was definitely a show-busy childhood, but at the same time was also a privileged New York kid childhood too.
So was going to the theater like, I don't know, going to Chuck E. Cheese?
Well, I mean, Chuck E. Cheese would have been still Chuck E. Cheese, but going to the theater with my father when I was a little kid, it was a big deal. I loved it. I mean, even though we did in fact go to Yankee Stadium to go to ball games together, this was like going with your dad to something that he loved and he wanted to share with me. So I do remember one of the first, early thing, he took me to see Oliver. And for some reason, I later really loved it. But I was 4 years old, and I got very embarrassed by, I think, the song "Where Is Love," which is a very sort of treacly song. And I just said, "Dad, we gotta go. We gotta go." And he was like, "Yeah, this is awful, this song." We left.
4 years old, that is young to go to a theater. I mean, my daughter, I took her to Wicked, and she said she wanted to leave after like 5 minutes. I'm like, these were $250 you've been asking to go.
Yeah, you should have bought glue or a belt or something for that much money.
Yeah, but at 4, I mean, just because it's a place that it's live, so you have to keep down, stay in your seats, no running in the aisles. That's pretty amazing. You must have just known this is how to behave. Or
I don't know exactly how I knew, but I think because my father also started taking me to movies really young, and I'd watch him and he'd be really into it and just sitting there kind of transfixed. So I was like, okay, that's what you do.
Did you understand what he did for a living?
Yes, I understood. I mean, I went and saw these musicals. I think probably I didn't see like real plays until I was a little older. So I knew that that's what he did. Yeah.
That must have been wild. I mean, I was like, my dad's a doctor. That little thing you used to play where it was like doctor, lawyer, teacher. You were never like famous lyricist and
I never
songwriter.
I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was a little kid for some reason. I loved animals, but then I realized you'd have to see them sick and die. And then I was like, okay, that's not going to happen for me. But he also brought me because his best friend was Leonard Bernstein, he would bring me to Lincoln Center or Carnegie Hall to hear classical music, and he would play me classical music, and he would show me his favorite art. He'd get art books out and then take me to museums. He had a lot of different passions for all sorts of arts, and he really wanted to share them with me. He wanted not just for me to love them, but I think he also just wanted a companion he could talk about with them.
Yeah. And what age were you when you realized what a big deal he was and his best friend? Like, when did you know that you had the bragging rights?
I think I thought my father was more famous than he was. I thought he was like a really, really famous guy when I was young. I didn't realize like, okay, he's famous within a certain sphere. I just thought he was, whereas Leonard Bernstein was just famous. He was on television. He was famous all over the world. I mean, he was in the way it's sort of hard to imagine now, a classical conductor and composer being. But yes, I think I thought my father was that famous. And then at some point I realized he's not that famous, but
he's still famous.
Yes, but still.
Yeah. Some of the guests I've had on, like Jimmy Paul, the hairstylist, his mother was a hairstylist, and he just loved watching her do her own hair, and he'd go to the hair salon and watch her do other women's hair, and that's what sparked his interest. When did you want to not follow in his footsteps specifically, but be a part of the world that he was in?
I knew that I wanted to be a writer of some kind pretty young. After the whole veterinarian thing didn't pan out. And I think it's just because it's what I could do. I was like, okay, I can do this.
How did you know that?
Just like writing stuff for school or writing like stories. And I just thought, okay, I can do this. And teachers said, hey, you're good at this. And I kind of enjoyed it at the time. I don't always enjoy it these days, but I do take pleasure in it. And I don't know exactly what else I would have done.
So I would assume your parents were thrilled that you were doing something in the arts.
Yeah, my father really wanted me to be a performer, which is such a weird inversion of what most parents would want. Most parents would if my daughter wanted to be a performer, I wouldn't stop her, but I'd be not happy about it. But my father was just like, in fact, literally on the very last night of his life, we had dinner on the night he died, and one of the last things he said to me, he was like, I don't understand why you don't want to be a performer. And I said, I don't know, it feels not very wholesome to me.
Well, what kind of performer did he think?
He just wanted me to act. I don't know what, I think I said people who do it, I feel like they need it too much.
Well, do you think it's because, this just came to me, because he wasn't in the front, that he was doing something that was so important to the performers?
The thing is, my father started out as a performer. He and his partner and then the actress Judy Holliday and a couple other people started out, they were writing sketches and performing them. And that's really what my father wanted to be, an actor. And it just, he was not going to ever get cast in anything. But he was a good performer, and he would perform his own songs. And in fact, he and his partner did it twice on Broadway. They had limited, like 3-month engagements on Broadway, performing their own songs. And he loved it. He loved performing. And I did have a brief career, very brief career as a performer. A friend of mine named Maura Moynihan. We were like a comedy duo. I guess my elevator pitch would be, we were like Nichols and May, just not as good. It's probably not the best way to sell ourselves, but that's what it was.
And do you think you did that because your dad had been wanting you to do it?
No, I did it just because this friend of mine, Maura Moynihan, who's a really brilliant woman, we would just sort of goof around when we would hang out and come up with these characters. And she said, okay, we got to do this in front of people. And she just like said, okay, I booked us at this nightclub. And I was like, all right. And I wanted to back out of it. And she just said, I'll never speak to you again if you do. So I did it. It was very strange. We got a good review, and then we were interviewed by someone at the Times. And then I woke up one Friday morning and I had a bunch of calls, and we were on the front page of the art section. And,
oh my God. And was this before college or after college?
After college.
Okay.
But it wasn't going to really go anywhere. And I had no interest in like, okay, now I'm going to be an actor and audition or anything. It was something I did because we did it. And then at some point I was like, that's that.
Okay. So you're writing a lot. Then you go to Harvard and you're writing there. And
I was on the Harvard Lampoon, which has since become like the pre-professional, sort of like the minor leagues. I mean, you get called up. Every comedy show is staffed with Harvard Lampoon kids straight out of college.
So did that lead to your stint at SNL?
It wasn't strictly through, I mean, that probably helped. Yeah, I think it helped. I think, but that happened because I had met a producer and writer named Herb Sargent, who had created Weekend Update at SNL. And he asked me to send him some of my stuff from the Lampoon. And I didn't expect to ever hear anything. And then I was in my dorm, and I got a call from him. And he's like, I'm doing this summer replacement show. Do you want to come work for it? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, okay. And he said, but you'll get a contract. And so you'll get paid at the Writers Guild apprentice rate. And I was like, wow, I bet I'm going to make like $200 or $300 a week or something. I mean, it was like $1,000 a week. I mean, whatever. It was like, what the heck? I couldn't believe it. But
and so you were doing this strictly as Adam Green. It wasn't even Adolph Green's son.
I mean, he knew who I was, but I mean,
it was very different than what your father was doing.
I mean, although related. The thing that I think that is true, probably in that case, in every case, is it always helps to have an in or an advantage, and one would be a fool not to take advantage of it and to use it. I mean, certainly, if anyone ever asks my career advice, I would say, who do you know, and can you get them to help you? Because it's not going to get you a job, but it's going to get you considered for a job.
Exactly. I know. Brian Coates and I spoke the other day, and we were talking about even getting that interview at HR at Condé Nast. You needed an in for an informative interview at HR. Because most people were either socialites or at least in the fashion department and the assistant. It's a very small industry, and I've been talking to everyone about the fact that no one retires. So if there's one little opening, there's a bunch of people waiting to get it. So anything to put your resume in the top 10, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure there are some people. I mean, yes, of course there are people who get jobs because of nepotism, but by and large, having an in gets you in to be
right.
So yes, I certainly had that advantage. And what was I going to do? Like not use? I would be silly to not use it.
Yeah, and you have to prove yourself once you're there. No one's going to keep anyone on that can't.
No, and they're not going to hire. They're not going to hire you. When I got hired at SNL, I had to write a bunch of audition sketches, and I don't think they were like, "Wow, he's Adolph Green's son. These suck, but let's hire him." And at that point, it was more because some of the people I'd on this terrible show that I worked on called The News is the News, which got canceled after 3 episodes, but a bunch of them were SNL writers. They brought my stuff to the producer, and said, "Oh, you should read this guy's stuff." At some point, it becomes because of the people you get to know, not because it's not. You don't have to have a father in show business in order, or in the arts or letters, in order to get a job.
And that's really important. As I'm doing these, when people start overlapping in what they're saying, it makes me take note, because Carla Martinez said all the internships she did, she made sure to always stay in touch, like reach out to all the different bosses or everyone she met at each internship, even between college semesters. And sure enough, everything that happened after that had to do with someone she had met years before. So that is interesting that it really is. She was always the first one there, last one to leave, made sure to meet everyone around her and make conversation and whatnot. So what was the timeline then from SNL to walking through the doors at Vogue magazine?
Boy, at SNL, and then a friend of mine, we wrote a bunch of screenplays for different studios, and they never got made. I mean, often things don't get made. And I think I probably sold like 6 or 7 screenplays that never got made, and wrote a bunch of pilots, like sitcom pilots for different studios that also didn't happen.
But you're making a living, like.
Yeah, I was making a living. I mean, a decent living. I certainly had not hit the stratospheric. I wasn't getting rich, but I was making a living. But certainly wasn't very fulfilling. And then, again, because of somebody I knew, I ran into the then theater critic for the New York Times, Frank Rich, who I knew because he came and saw my friend Moore and me perform and liked us, and came up and talked to us afterwards and said, "Stay in touch." And we stayed in touch a little bit. And I ran into him on the street, and he was like, "Why don't you write something for the Times?" And I was like, "Okay." And I wrote a humor piece about like how to get invited to people's houses for the weekend if you're stuck in the city. And I think I was paid $500 for it, but I got more calls about that. People read it. And this has never happened before or since. I was on a bus and I saw a guy actually like saying, "Listen to this," and reading it out loud to his girlfriend. And
oh my God.
I mean, I really wanted to go like, "I wrote that." Or I certainly tried to look like I might be the guy who wrote it, and hoping he would notice. But whatever it was. And after these years of writing things that just went into a drawer, I really loved it. And I made the leap into the non-lucrative world of magazine writing. Then I started writing. I did a Talk of the Town piece for the New Yorker. I got the name of the guy who was doing editing, who was doing Talk of the Town, and just sent him a piece of mine from the Times with an idea. And he was like, "Okay, great." And then it was, again, friends and things. A great friend of mine from college, Susan Morrison, was an editor at the New Yorker. And I started writing Talk of the Town stuff for her, and then longer pieces. And I think it was Jay Fielden, who was then the features editor at Vogue. He suggested me to Anna. Vogue was looking for a theater writer. And I think they assumed that because my father had written for the theater, that this must be a guy who knows everything about theater.
Because that's so funny, because it's going from basically you're writing from your head, like writing things you're interested in writing, or writing about, I wonder how I can get invited out to a friend's house. And they're just assuming, oh, he can do a great piece about The Wiz. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm thinking the first piece I did for the New Yorker was about, because when I was a little kid, I was really like a magic nut, which is...
I can see that, yeah.
By the way, that is catnip for girls. Oh my God. Girls love a nerdy 13-year-old doing magic tricks.
Well, look, they had it on White Lotus, everybody.
But that's true.
Yep.
I remember seeing that and thinking, it's not real. Except they were older, they were charmed by you. But girls my own age were not.
You didn't end up in a threesome after disappearing.
Oh my God, I would have given anything, but no, it did not happen. Actually, not that threesome. The brother. Very different threesome would have been.
Oh my God.
But anyway, my first piece was about the funeral of a magician. I had once bought a magic trick at this magic store, and they said, hey, the guy that invented this trick is here. Why don't you have him teach it to you? And he did. And then I read that he had died, and I went and did a piece about his funeral. And
Wow.
again, I was writing stuff that interested me, but I wasn't writing about the theater, and I hadn't really
At all.
I hadn't been planning to make that what I wrote about. But I was offered it, and I still loved the theater. I loved going to the theater. I just wasn't planning to write about it. And
So you go into Vogue and you meet Anna, and what was that like? The interview about writing about theater.
well, it was strange. My father had died like a few days before.
Oh wow.
But the upside of that there was two upsides. One was that I had just gotten a nice new suit for his memorial, so I had a nice Prada suit to wear to my interview with Anna, and I think I was able to be less articulate than I needed to be because my father had just died. So I think she cut me a lot of slack.
Right. Because everyone remembers their interview, or some people, there's been a few who totally blacked out and just remember what they wore, but everybody remembers what they wore. It's so funny.
I don't remember that much else about the interview just because I really was in a fog from
Of course.
father having died. I just remember thinking, okay, I really do want this job, but whatever. I wasn't as nervous as I might have been otherwise.
Right. So did you want the job for the prestige of writing for Vogue, or were you interested in having something that was a monthly thing where you're writing consistently? Although
that
it's
was
not.
I mean, I was interested in that I had a regular platform and, to be honest, a regular income.
Right.
That I could count on, and that was also the day of the very generous Condé Nast
Yes.
contract. And again, I remember when I was negotiating with Laurie Jones for what I was going to be paid, I was expecting and would have taken about a third of what they offered. So I was a little stunned. I did get a good piece of advice from a friend who's an agent and who just knows stuff. He said, they're going to offer you more than you're thinking. And he said, no matter what it is, he said, it's not going to be less, but even if it's way more, don't go, yo, yes. He said, here's what you do. He said, stay silent and count to 10 in your head. And he said, 1, 2. And at the end of the count to 10, he said, sigh. I say, that's not what I had in mind.
Did you do that?
I did it. And she offered me more money. I didn't say what, and it was, I mean, I could be honest. I was like, that's way more than I had in mind. But I did. Again, it was also because my father just died. I was just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Why not? And
did they ask you to write anything? I guess your pieces have been in the New Yorker, the Times, so they're not going to be like, can you go review something before we hire you as our theater person for the next?
No, they were hiring me because of what I'd written. And,
right. If you can write, you can pretty much write about anything. If you have that skill, like a painter, if you can paint, you can do landscapes or portraits. I don't know. Is it?
Yeah, up to a point. If you're writing about something all the time and you don't love it, then that's going to come through at some point. And if you don't know anything about it,
right.
I'm not saying that my taste is like the greatest. I'm always right about everything, but you develop your own taste over the years by seeing things, and you can't do a crash course in that. But
right.
Sure, you can. I mean, so I had developed taste because I did go to the theater and I did love it. I just had never really planned to write about it.
And were you nervous for the first assignment? And what was the first assignment?
My first assignment was Bernadette Peters was going to be in Gypsy. Gypsy is a musical basically about an overbearing stage mother who sort of bullies her kids into performing. And I knew that Bernadette Peters had an overbearing stage mother, and that she had been in a summer stock production of Gypsy when she was 13. So I knew that she had a personal connection to it. And so I made it about her personal connection, and I tried to get at what the personal connections of everyone involved in it were. Specifically, what did they feel about their mothers? And it turns out all of them had complicated feelings about their mothers and had put that into the musical. into the writing of it. So I guess I had that instinct, and it ended up being a good piece because it wasn't just like, "Hey, Bernadette Peters is coming,"
Right.
And that's what I tried to always look for. What would be the personal connection of the people involved?
I just remembered my personal connection, not to Gypsy, but to Bernadette, which is she had, when she was pretty young, been in a revival of a musical of my father's. And I was probably 9 at the time. And I saw it a bunch of times and definitely had what was for sure a hopeless crush on her, because very few beautiful adult women were that interested in 9-year-old boys, and she was not among them. But one time my father brought me backstage, to say hello to her, and I knocked on her dressing room door, and I did not wait for her to say, "Come in." And I opened the door, and there she was, completely naked, like facing me full on. There it was. And I'd never seen anything like it in my entire life. And I think I probably stood there drinking it in a little longer than I should have, but just because I knew it was going to be many years before I saw anything like it again. And it was a little bit, how are you going to keep them down on the farm after they've seen Paris? Because
Was your dad right behind you?
I walked in. I don't think my dad walked in, but I walked in, and then she went like,
Yeah.
eek. I don't know if she actually went eek, but something like that. And I stood there a little longer than I should have, and then I quickly closed the door. But I thought about that moment a lot for many, many years.
I mean, how they say when you're talking to a crowd, like imagine them naked. So when you're interviewing her, it's your first interview. You're like, I can imagine her naked.
I could imagine her. I did tell her the story, and she didn't really remember, which I was kind of.
Wait. You said to her, I walked in on you and you were naked? Remember?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was true. It was she was 9 years old at the time. It wasn't like, don't you remember, last year?
But I would just think she'd be like, now this is an awkward conversation.
No, I think she was fine about it.
That is hilarious. Yeah, thank God it wasn't your dad. That would be more awkward.
But he wouldn't have just.
Yeah, of course.
I just was like, oh boy, I can't wait to see her.
And you
saw I got more than I bargained for. And said,
that is
remember it.
You still remember it to this day.
Yes.
The first star you interviewed and the first woman you saw naked.
Correct. And
was that the first time you had interviewed a well-known person when you're writing?
Trying to think.
Because I'm just wondering because there's nerves already involved, I would think. I mean, this is the first piece of the rest of your career there. And then you're adding an element of, as I spoke to Jonathan about, you're doing two things. You're interviewing someone, which is one skill, and then you're writing what you get out of them, which is another skill. It's twofold. You have to be good at both.
Yes. When you're interviewing, you need to both establish a personal connection and to talk like you're a human being with the other person. This is not like, did you or did you not steal those public funds? This is not that kind of an interview. Right. There's no gotcha. You're trying to talk and get them to speak to you as one person to another, while also keeping mindful of what am I going to need for this piece. I might have an idea of what I need, and then it might change as you're talking, and you realize, oh, wait a second, I didn't know that. You also you want to go in with an idea of what you want and what you might need for the piece, while at the same time being open to whatever comes up and not just making the conversation your agenda.
Right. Well, that leads me to the questions that are most important. Not to keep bringing it back to Jonathan, but this is interesting because you're two writers that I had the closest relationships with at the magazine, both being the top, definitely the first choice. Like you were the theater guy. I never knew anyone before you or after you. Jonathan, most cover stories went to him first. So you two were the big shots there as far as the writers. And he said he'd color code all of his questions. So he had 4 different color codes, and he would lean on which color to go to based on how it's going. am I getting long answers that are actually answering future questions? Okay, then let me get my whatever the green, which is 25 questions. Or if they're giving nothing, then let me move up the most critical questions and just get those answers,
I admire that. I was not that organized. I didn't think quite that strategically, and it's smart that he did, because there were probably times where I was like, uh-oh, maybe I'm flying by the seat of my pants here, because I had, covered a lot of this. I wasn't getting the in-depth answers that I was hoping on questions, and then I was now having to just wing it. But that also worked sometimes, because I certainly found dealing with people in the theater and actors and film and stuff, that what I might not have done in another interview is I might not have given anything about myself. But I found that by revealing things about myself, not deep, dark secrets, but I mean, just by being like a person, and that opened things up, that I was not there as an inquisitor.
Right.
I was there mostly to listen, because people do also like to talk, but also to open up other avenues of conversation, because these are also people who have done a lot of interviews usually and have a lot of the answers that they fall back on. And it's always distressing to look through your notes and realize, oh, this is the same answer I've seen in other places. So I found by opening up about myself and maybe relating something about my life to whatever the topic at hand was, that they would open up and go someplace different.
And did you have an opening line or how you started an interview that became just the way you did it? Or was it really everyone was different? But because it is important, that comfort level at first, and you did interview a lot of actors multiple times, which I would assume is easier because that rapport is already there. The trust is already there. They've read what you've written. So I would think they'd be like, bring him on. I just want to talk to Adam for the rest of my career,
I don't think that I had a standard opening. There was probably a little bit of ass kissing involved, but usually mostly sincere ass kissing. I got to interview people who I admired. There were a few people I was genuinely intimidated to interview. Not usually actors, but like the English playwright Tom Stoppard, who is a extraordinarily brilliant writer and just person and learned and erudite. And I just felt like, okay, I am an idiot compared, I was intimidated, and
Of course.
Then,
if you're interviewing playwrights, I would think that would be more intimidating than an actor per se.
Actors could be pretty tough. I eventually learned to become very, very afraid of interviewing Vanessa Redgrave.
Really?
Well, because the first time I interviewed her, she was doing a one-woman play of Joan Didion's book, The Year of Magical Thinking.
I saw that. Brilliant.
It was a brilliant book, and it was a brilliant production, I think, written by David Hare. And so I flew to London to interview her. And she suggested this restaurant next door to where she lived, and it was an incredibly loud restaurant. And I was just like, wow, this is a terrible choice. And so she was speaking English, and I was having a hard time understanding what she was saying. And we'd been there now getting to be almost an hour, and she's just talking about different subjects. And finally I said, anyway, about the play. And she said, before we begin, you have to know there are two things I will not discuss. And I said, okay, what are they? She said, the play or Joan's book that it's based on. I was like, that kind of cuts off a little.
She wasn't kidding?
She was not kidding. She said, can't we just talk about art and life and love? I was like, I'd be thrilled to, but I was now sweating because I had to come back with something. And dinner's come, we've eaten, check is paid. I've got nothing. And she said, I'll make you some tea. Come up to my flat. And I went up there. I was there for another hour and a half. Finally, she vaguely talked about, I got a few things, but it was, I think I lost like 30 pounds during that.
I can't believe how close we are, and especially you, but me too, with all the theater PR people everyone involved, that no one would say, oh, by the way, she gets really sticky at first about discussing. So I advise you go around this way or not. They need this written about. I mean, not that people were relying on what you wrote to see it, but still the producers want you to be writing about it. And if their lead, the only person in the play.
Yeah, I talked to David Hare and I talked to Joan Gideon. So I had something to write. And I did have some, a few quotes from her. But every other time I interviewed her, it was always like, well, no, I don't want to talk about the character. I don't want to talk about the play and what it's about. I mean, you'll see it on stage. It will be there. I was like, I understand. It was always
Well, listen, to be fair, I could see what she's saying. When you just said it that way, you'll see it. But still, you're an actor that has done this many times. But that makes me wonder, did you find it better to speak with the director or writer before interviewing the star?
Sometimes. And I did learn to do that because then I knew at least I've got something to write. If you have that other stuff, you can write a piece and just have a couple of quotes from the star. But yeah, those were tough. And then who else was really tough?
How about Denzel? I was going to get to this whole celebrity part later, but I love it. This is the best part. I was on the Denzel shoot and he didn't really speak. And then there was all that stuff in the press. I don't know if it was made up about Othello and him just being annoyed with the press being around and all of that.
He was okay, but we ended up not being able to run the piece. He was doing Raisin is that what it was?
Yeah, yes.
Raisin in the Sun with Diane Carroll. He was okay. He answered questions and stuff, but she was not easy. And I was about to turn in the piece and they said I think the production got canceled.
We did Fences. We did Fences with him.
Yes, and that piece was published.
Right.
And he was I enjoyed talking with him. He was fine. But it was for Raisin in the Sun that the production got canceled.
Oh, God.
And the piece that I wrote was a mess because I barely got anything.
Right. How many shows were you seeing a week?
I was probably going maybe like 3 a week. I mean, there are other people in my position who would have been going every night, but 3 a week was plenty. I loved it, but I wanted nights off to do other stuff.
Oh, of course. I have to admit that I went to see a lot of the shows we covered, but if I saw that it was over 90 minutes, I was like, okay, I'm counting. Okay, I'll get home. It'll be over at 11. I'll get home at about 11:30. By the time I wind down. So if the play wasn't great, or if I, as I would say, got the gist, I would leave at halftime, But did you ever do that?
In fact, right when I found out that I'd gotten the job, I had lunch with John Lahr, who was at the time the theater critic for The New Yorker. And I was like, well, any advice? He said, yeah. He said, if you're seeing something that you're not writing about, if you don't have to write about it and you don't like it, leave it intermission.
Of course, I would always make sure I wasn't sitting near someone that was going to yap about it.
I mean, obviously you want to be politic about it.
Right.
And there have been a couple of plays where I couldn't leave and I really wanted to leave. And it was...
Which ones?
I'm not going to say which one, but it was, one of them was just so excruciating. And for various reasons, I could not leave. If it was like being like in math class when you wanted it to be over and you just kept looking at the clock, like, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. You feel like you're going to explode if you don't get out of your seat. But.
Well, and then there were some 2-parters, 2 full days. There was a Mark Rylance, right? I actually loved that one.
That was actually one of the great experiences.
That was.
I was doing the 2 Shakespeare plays, Richard III and Twelfth Night.
Oh, that was amazing. But it's a lot. I'd go during the day just because I had to be in work so early. And that'd be like my whole Saturday, Sunday, like in a dark theater when it's like nice outside. You're coming out like yawning.
I actually loved like those immersive theater things where you give the whole day to it. I would see like both parts of the different productions of Angels in America in one day. I loved doing that.
Yeah, that would make sense. I feel like I didn't have that option with that Mark Rylance one, and then I never got to see Harry Potter. I think I only got tickets till one part, and they ran out of the other day that I could go.
And they've since crammed it together into just one part.
Okay.
I think they cut it down and made it just one play.
And because there are so many revivals, is there a show that every time you hear there's a revival, you're like, I can't wait to see it for the 100th time? And one that you might be like, why are they reviving that? Let it die.
I'm always happy to see Gypsy, which I think is the best musical ever written. It feels as profound as any play. There's nothing just frothy and silly about it. It's a very dark, fun and funny, but dark portrait of a narcissistic mother and the damage she inflicts. And then the emptiness she feels at the end when she realizes that she's the one who wanted to be a star, not make her daughters a star. And
I've not seen that, but I feel like I'd really understand it.
so it's probably sacrilegious to say this, but Gypsy has lyrics by Sondheim I don't love as much as everyone else does Into the Woods. And even though there was recently a really good revival of it, most of the time I was like, I don't really want to see that. I don't know. And I know most people would disagree with me. But people love that musical. But
well, let me ask you, what is it that makes a revival good or better than the last one? Does it really rely on who's playing the role, or can the material soar with or without?
It really depends on the show. I mean, Gypsy needs a great performance at its center. It's incredibly written. It requires someone like Audra McDonald or Patti LuPone or
so someone has to match the material.
Yeah, someone has to really take it and make it their own. Performances always matter. You can't have a blah performance.
Right.
It doesn't always require a star turn like that.
Right. Cabaret, I've seen it 4 times because we covered it 4 times. I wasn't at US Vogue when we covered Eddie, but when it was Emma Stone, Michelle Williams, and Sienna Miller.
Right.
Did you write all 3 of those?
No, I just wrote Michelle Williams. I think we did Emma Stone, but...
Mm-hmm. Did you see all those?
I did.
What did you think about the different actors, especially the first 3, because they didn't change the material like they did with Eddie?
This recent production with Eddie, they didn't rewrite the material, but it was very radically reinterpreted.
Right, exactly. That's what I mean.
The staging and I think those productions. So I think Alan Cumming was in all of those.
It was just the lead that changed.
It was just, and it changed definitely with each person, and I liked all of them. I especially liked Michelle and Emma in it. I did not see Sienna Miller in it, but I'm thinking I didn't like her that much, but I did see it. That may be why.
And when you're thinking about critiquing, and I know you're not critiquing, what are you looking for, especially with the actor? Because I'm always wondering what makes a good theater performance, because there's more involved. You're not redoing a scene like you are in a film. Is it the projection? Is it, I would just find it so much harder for a Hollywood actor with no theater experience to go on to Broadway. And maybe we just start talking about the celebrity, the Hollywood star coming to the Great White Way. What is the key to being a great theater actor?
I think it's just really being in the present moment and playing the character and knowing how to connect with the audience. You're not mugging to the audience, but I think really great theater actors are aware of the audience and feed off of the energy of the audience without directly playing to them. And at the same time, just stay completely in character. And
wow.
And then there's also things like charisma and obviously talent. But I think it's that when someone's really present.
Feel it. Yeah. Or you feel it if you're sitting in the front row of Jonathan Groff, where he is spitting on you. You're definitely connecting with him.
Yes. And charisma, as I said, that also makes a big...
it just must be so hard. I'm astonished by them because you're doing it every night. And someone like a Hugh Jackman, one of the greats, obviously, who was doing theater way before Wolverine, which I bet a lot of kids don't know, that he was doing Oklahoma in Australia before he was killing people with long nails.
I think his first theater job, and maybe his first professional gig was Beauty and the Beast in Australia.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he's amazing because you feel all of that. And he did some incredibly long runs. I don't know if it was Boy from Oz, which I saw twice, or his one-man show or whatnot, but I feel like one was at least over a year or something like that.
I think another thing, especially with musicals, is he is loving it. You can feel him loving it. You can feel him loving the response coming from the audience. He's a stage creature and he loves it. And when you're in the presence of someone who really loves what they're doing, who loves where they are at that moment, it's electrifying.
We'll get back to him, but who do you prefer writing about or interviewing? The great theater actor, I consider Patrick Wilson one, or a big Hollywood star that is maybe taking their first turn on Broadway?
I guess it really depends. I mean, the cliche of Hollywood stars coming to Broadway is like, oh, theater's my first love, and that just means that they did a bunch of either school plays or like stuff in acting school. But then there are also people like Hugh Jackman who genuinely started on and loved the stage.
Yeah, it's like, it was my first great love, yet the check was much better from Marvel. You know what I mean?
And I think it's two very different types of acting.
Oh, of course.
One is making yourself sort of larger, and I think for a camera you can't do that. It's about doing as much as you can with as little as you can.
And I think it must be so hard because I can tell, and I'm by no means a theater professional, but seeing Amanda Peet with Patrick Wilson years ago in Barefoot in the Park, the shouting versus the projecting, like making your voice loud enough. And I know they're mic'd, so I don't know why it was so evident. I guess you're still projecting even mic'd, where it sounds like shouting versus Patrick's voice is caring, but he's talking. I think that's the first difference I notice with like Katie Holm and Kevin Kline when they were together, when you're matching a newbie with a,
well, then yes, often it's a little bit like watching a pro-am tennis tournament, like
yes,
I don't know, watching Rafael Nadal hit around with Larry David or something. I mean, they're playing two different games.
Okay, so I want you to rate a Broadway performance by the following Hollywood celebrities.
Okay.
From 1 to 5.
Oh, all right.
5 being the best.
Okay.
Okay, and if you didn't see them on Broadway in any production,
I'll just make something up.
Pass. Oh yeah, or make something up. No. Okay, Amanda Peet.
Oh gosh, not high.
I mean, they're great actors. I can't wait to see our new show. It's just, this is tough. We're not up there. It's, we're not up there.
It's on a couple of things. I'm thinking of now, like Barefoot in the Park. That was.
And wasn't she in one of the Neil LaBute plays? Maybe.
Yeah, she was. Yeah. She was actually gets a 3-4.
Yeah.
And Barefoot in the Park, I'll give her a 2.
Yeah. Okay, Katie Holmes, who did get better as she's been doing it more.
Yeah. Not great. Okay, we don't need a number. I'll just say
okay. Kieran Culkin.
Oh, well, he's terrific. He's great on the stage.
When you interviewed him, did you ever think this guy's going to win an Oscar someday, by the way?
I didn't. I don't think I thought that. But on stage, he's got real star quality.
You can tell it in his speech, like just doing a speech off the cuff-ish. He just has that. I don't know. He's a character within a character almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And he knows how to be seductive as an actor, even to an audience, even if he's not playing to the audience. He's very seductive and he's wonderful on stage.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
I think he's terrific. I mean, maybe I'd give him a 4.5 just for sometimes a little actory. But
yeah, like when they did the 2-man show with Tom Sturridge. It was a bit.
I mean, he's always good. He is always maybe just a tiny bit too much at times, but very good. And he was wonderful in Sunday in the Park with George. And so I'm just deducting half a point for occasional, maybe a little whiff of ham that comes through.
Sienna Miller.
I'm thinking.
Miss
Not see her- not really- Oh, I
Julie.
did see her in what I'm now forgetting.
Miss Julie,
Miss
probably.
Julie. After Miss Julie, it was called.
Oh, after Miss Julie.
3.
Scarlett Johansson.
I'd say 4, and no, she's good. She's good. I'll say 4 in
The Liev
Cat on a
Schreiber.
Hot Tin Roof, but then with Liev Schreiber, she was really good.
Yeah, exactly. I thought Cat on a Hot Tin Roof was below.
Yeah,
yeah.
she was superb. It was
Over the Bridge.
A View from the Bridge.
Yeah.
With Liev Schreiber. Yeah.
Okay, and Michelle Williams.
Let's see. I give her close to a 5. I think she's one of the most extraordinary actresses, and I think she didn't get the kinds of reviews that I think that she deserved in Cabaret or in Blackbird. She's
Both very heart-wrenching roles. It's not like I've seen her do another type of character. She's had to play these super heavy roles, which must be hard to do every night.
Yeah, I think it probably took a toll on her, but she can be very emotionally exposed and exposed to the wounds
Absolutely.
and or the wounds of the character, but not melodramatically. It just feels very real. So, yes, I think she's wonderful.
Okay, and with the actors that you've interviewed multiple times, have you seen with any of them like this major change? I mean, I imagine Lin-Manuel, when talking about In the Heights, was far different from when he exploded in Hamilton, or even Hamilton off Broadway to Hamilton going to Broadway.
I did not write about him for In the Heights.
Okay, yeah.
I was in the minority that I didn't love In the Heights. I
loved it.
I saw it twice, and the opening number was one of the best things I'd ever seen. And I just thought, oh my God, this is something new. And then the rest of the musical just felt very old fashioned, like a Yiddish melodrama from the I don't know.
I can see what you're saying.
Like the grandmother going, my son, my grand. I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it the way people did. But Hamilton was obviously like something. I mean, Hamilton to me felt like the fulfillment of the promise in the first number.
Yes. It is kind of crazy. We've seen Hollywood actors come to Broadway, and then there has been a handful that we've known on Broadway that have become stars afterwards, like in film. I don't know if Jonathan Groff is considered a star on television in film right now, but he has definitely come a long way from Spring Awakening. And I remember meeting him then with John Gallagher and Ned Martell. I took them to get drinks at the Rose Bar because I'd seen it twice and I loved it. And I mean, the poor guy that ran the door at the Rose Bar, he had just come from Double Seven, where I used to bring the History Boys. Talk about someone that became a star, James Corden. I used to bring all the History Boys out at night when they had a night off, which was obviously usually Monday night. And the door guy's like, we have to have like 2 girls to each guy. So how many guys are you bringing, Jill? I'm like, well, James, Jamie, like I'm counting them. I'm like, 7, but Jamie has a girl he's bringing, and the guy Damien's like, Jill, come on. So then he moved to the Rose Bar. I'm like, can I bring these 2 theater guys, Jonathan and John? He's like, Jill. And at that point, John Groff, he wasn't even 21, and he was actually doing soap operas early in the morning to kind of pay his rent.
Right.
Spring Awakening was off Broadway. But to see these careers, it's pretty amazing when they start on Broadway and then they become household names.
Oh yeah. Have I seen people who've, I'm sort of blanking on
Well, James, did you ever meet him when he was doing theater? James Corden?
James Corden? Yes, I wrote about him for One Man, Two Governors.
Oh, right. Right.
Which was, extraordinary. And
so good. I know. It's wild that he's so huge now. When he played Teddy Roosevelt in that big story we did on Edith Wharton, when we had Natalia play Edith, it was so funny because I had his number to, because I was booking cars or something, and I realized it was in my phone as James History Boy.
Oh, right.
I had seen him a couple times, since then, thinking he's this big actor, totally not putting two and two together. And I went up to him and he's like, yeah, I remember walking you home at 6 a.m. from Florent. I'm like, oh my God.
Florent, I miss that place.
I know, right? But yeah, I just love seeing these incredible actors kind of get their due, or their paycheck rather, doing film. So let's go to some of the specific celebrities that you've written bigger stories with, like cover stories.
Okay.
So you did 2 cover stories with Anne Hathaway.
Yep, I did.
The Michelle Williams for Marilyn. You did Cate Blanchett and Keira Knightley. Is there anyone I'm missing? Those are pretty big.
Cameron Diaz for the second or third or whatever, some Charlie's Angels.
Oh, wow. Yes, I remember that cover too. Oh, I didn't even know you were put with her. That is so funny. I wonder, I know there's some psychology behind who they pair writers with the celebrities.
I don't quite know why Cameron Diaz. I mean, I thought.
Well, you're mellow.
On.
You're mellow, and some writers can be divas where they're inserting themselves too much in the story. So maybe we were wooing her back at that time, by the way, because we had photographed the 3 of them and never ran it because Anna thought it looked like a feminine product advertising. So it took me a while to get her back after that. So that was
a nice, soothing, safe, sort of a milquetoast.
Exactly. Like the brother. Like, oh, just think your brother's interviewing you, because it can happen.
Yeah. I mean, I like me, or we just sort of had like an interview at the Chateau Marmont lunch. So it was not a fascinating. I remember that piece. I had to I had to really cook up a lot to come up with a full piece.
Yeah, I want to know about the process of a cover story, a big profile, versus what you were used to doing all the time, and any highlights or any inside scoop from any of these cover stories that our listeners would be fascinated to hear.
Well, I mean, that was an example of where I had to build a cover story out of not much.
Well, there wasn't much to talk about with that movie anyway, right?
There wasn't much to talk about with the movie. Outside of just sitting down with her, I didn't get to see her really. I got to sort of hang around in the background for part of the shoot, but I was told, like, make yourself scarce. I think it was Annie Leibovitz who she doesn't like having any writers around.
I
so
probably did that.
If she asks who you are, say you're a craft services guy or something
I'm
like that.
I'm sure I told you that because Jonathan said the same thing. I'm like, yeah, I'd have to tell you guys, like, just don't let her see you.
So I didn't have a lot to work with. So I had to do a lot of other interviews, and
she was notorious for not giving much. She was super private.
She was very nice. She couldn't have been nicer. She wasn't in any way unpleasant. I just realized, like, we really didn't talk about much of anything. And whatever questions I had, she just sort of deflected them. And again, all very charmingly. It was a piece where I just had to build out of. I think I even talked to like a bunch of like internet film nerds who would have super crushes on her just to get something funny and interesting in the story. I mean, it worked out, but I didn't sit around by the phone waiting for the Pulitzer Committee to call.
And then while we're on that, though, when you're in that situation, how does your editor fold in? Because I know there is almost like a therapeutic relationship or whatnot. I talked to Jonathan about this, and I know I dealt with Jonathan a lot because he can be moody. He'd be the first to admit it. And there's a way to kind of handle it. You guys are fragile in a sense. We need what's in your brain. We need it on paper by Friday. You know what I mean? And I can remember meetings. It's like, Anna, will somebody call Adam? And Valerie's like, then somebody else, Taylor, like somebody call Adam, Jill. Because it's like the deadline is approaching and there's nothing we could do about it, but we don't want to freak you out so that you can't produce.
Right.
So it's like a chicken and an egg, like, please lay that egg. Like, what can we do?
Yeah, I think that's the least pleasant part of writing for the writer and for the people waiting for the writing. Some writers are not like that, and I envy them. Don't get anxious and don't doubt themselves and second guess themselves and think this is no good. Oh my God, I can never. all the times up to now have been a fluke, and now I'm not going to be able to do it. And I don't know why.
Well, that's what Annie Leibovitz feels all the time. When I talk to Karen, and I've heard Annie say it, it's really interesting, though, that the struggling artist or these creatives, it takes a certain type of person to do what you do and Annie does. And there's a lot of similarities between the two. From your point of view, you're reinterpreting something in your brain and giving it back to us, right? And that's kind of what Annie's doing. She's seeing something and then giving us back what she's seeing. So that's a lot of pressure.
It is. I mean, to be fair to Annie Leibovitz, she's an artist. I'm writing, we're talking about like a profile of a celebrity for the cover of a magazine. So it's a different, yes, she's taking the pictures of the celebrity, but she's really trying to do something special and different.
So are you.
Up to a point. I think it is better to just sometimes just not be such a, not expect so much. I've definitely found that there are times where I've sweat and I've tried to make good, and then other times I'm just like, fuck it, and just write it. And then afterwards I look at them, they're the same. It's the same product. It is not.
Did you learn any tools, or was there a secret sauce? I mean, I'm sure you don't know the secret that everyone had there on how to push them along a bit without, there's some people like Phyllis, when working with Stephen Klein, he'd always get freaked out on set, and I've seen it. It's almost writer's block in a photographer. He just couldn't see it. He couldn't see it. So she learned to tell him the models had to leave by 5. Because if he didn't know that, he would keep going through this. So that deadline, in a way, for some reason, she wouldn't tell him until she saw it coming, where he was doubting himself. And then she would say it. And I guess that's kind of like, I guess I just have to go with this. Maybe it was that type of deadline.
Sometimes, a deadline where I almost could hear like the trigger on the gun that's being held to my head. I could hear the trigger starting to be pulled. Okay. Sometimes that's what it would take. And there were times when I thought, and I think a lot of writers think like, I work best under pressure when I just have no time. And I think it's as untrue as, like, there's some basketball players who, when the final buzzer comes closer, they just start hitting, they start sinking.
Well, Tom Brady definitely is one of those.
And people are like, oh my gosh, look at that. That the pressure makes them more accurate. And it's not true. What happens is, I think with basketball players, is they know the buzzer is about to come. They just start shooting more. So they're sinking more. And it's not that I write better. I'm just actually writing. I just do it. And
right.
It's not like, oh, I write better. No, it's like I actually do the work because of that. And I think it's the same thing. Like, the basketball players don't become better with the buzzer approaching. They just shoot more. And
yeah,
writers don't become better. You just write.
As I mentioned earlier, you've written about Cate Blanchett quite a bit, and she is the ultimate icon. Talking about Hollywood and theater, she is a star in both lanes. So tell me what she was like, and if you have any stories about working with her.
She's someone who I was maybe slightly intimidated to meet, probably because I had a little secret crush on her. And I do remember being a little taken aback when I first met her. We were going to see a very strange play called Grasses of a Thousand Colors that involved like a man having an affair with an actual cat. It was a strange, like 3-hour play, but it was what she had chosen. And
wait, to do for the activity?
Yeah, she wanted to go see this play at the.
But you're not talking the whole time. That's a great activity to choose for an actress who doesn't want to sit and talk for a while.
Well, it's true, but I think a lot of it did make its way just because the play that she chose was. I loved it, but it was really a peculiar play, and I was a little uncomfortable with a lot of the sex cats part, and
especially sitting next to this like iconic actress that you have a tiny little crush on.
And I certainly was hoping that people would see us in the theater and be like, "Oh, who is that dashing young man with Cate Blanchett?" Well, yeah. And then it was even afterwards when we did actually do an interview and we went and had dinner at Jay Shiki. There was Tom Stoppard, and I forget who he was with, someone equally fancy. And
oh my God! And you were talking
at the table
about
next to us, and I walked in with Cate Blanchett, so I was now feeling like king of the world.
Yeah, and you had said you were intimidated by Tom Stoppard earlier when you had to interview
And now here I was walking in with Kate Blanchett, not literally on my arm, but figuratively on my
You're
arm.
right.
And,
Oh my God.
And I did have one moment where I really felt like, wow, she's really wants to know about me. And I'll tell you what happened. As I mentioned before, I was part of a comedy duo, but it wasn't something that I imagined the general public, much less Kate Blanchett, would know much about. And as we were chatting, she said, it just seems to me, am I wrong that I remember that you used to be part of a comedy duo a while ago? I feel like I remember reading about you. And for a minute, I thought, wow, I guess our reach was a little bit more than I thought. And then for one second, I thought maybe she Googled me, and then I just realized, no, she was prepped and she just was a pro at holding it in and making it seem as if it were off the top of her head. But it was just a little too improbable. She did it very well, but when I thought about it, it just didn't make sense and seemed completely impossible that she would have known that. So,
but what did you say? Did you try to downplay?
I was stunned. I hadn't had time to think through. I just took it at face value, and I think it just pumped me up a little bit more in terms of here I am out with Kate Blanchett, and everyone thinks, who is this mystery man?
Yeah, and you start kind of saying what your technique was before you stepped on stage.
I luckily, thank God, I did not go that far. I did not start shining myself and blowing smoke up my own butt. No,
And did Tom Stoppard come over to say hi to her?
Well, no, they were literally right at the next table. So they said hello, and I don't remember. I interviewed him, but I don't know if it was. But he still gave me kind of a comradely nod, like we're all part of the same world, because here I was, Kate Blanchett's date. Anyway,
that is great.
We had no further dates. She was mad for a start, and but
I love it.
It ended up being a great interview, and she was really smart and funny and impressive and adorable, and
everything you think she is.
Yeah, I don't remember whether I had mentioned the walking in on Bernadette, because Bernadette Peters was the first. That was the first story I did for Vogue. Was her and Gypsy.
Oh no, you just talked about but you didn't.
I forgot to mention that when I was like, I don't know, I was like 8 or 9. I'm probably 9 years old. Like, she was in a revival of a musical of my dad's, and she was pretty young. And
wait, hold on. Let's just see where you were here on this, so I can make it go into here. Okay, so Bernadette, you talked about her. It's funny because when I try to, so that would have been. Okay, Bernadette. So maybe it's in the Gypsy section because, oops. Okay, Bernadette. I just had it. Gypsy. Oops. Okay, here we go. My first assignment was Bernadette Peters. Bernadette was going to be in Gypsy. I forgot how I knew this. Gypsy. I knew Bernadette Peters. Had an overbearing stage mom. I tried to get out personal connections. So I knew that she had a personal connection to it. I made it about her personal connection. And that was the first time I'd interviewed a well-known I said, was that the first time you'd interviewed a well-known person? So I think you can say something like, remembered the story about Bernadette.
Yeah, that my personal connection to her. I reckon.
So go for it. Say, I just remembered my personal. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and actually, I just remembered my personal connection, not to Gypsy, but to Bernadette, which is she had, when she was pretty young, been in a revival of a musical of my father's, and I was probably 9 at the time, and I saw it a bunch of times, and definitely, had what was for sure a hopeless crush on her because very few beautiful adult women were that interested in 9-year-old boys, and she was not among them. One time my father brought me backstage, and just to say hello to her, and I knocked on her dressing room door, and I did not wait for her to say, "Come in." And I opened the door, and there she was, completely naked, like facing me full on. There it was. And I'd never seen anything like it in my entire life. And, I think I probably stood there drinking it in a little longer than I should have, but just because I knew it was going to be many years before I saw anything like it again. And so, and it was it was a little bit, how are you going to keep them down on the farm after they've seen Paris? Because
was your dad right behind you?
I walked in. I don't remember I don't think my dad walked in, but I walked in, and then she went like,
yeah,
eek. I don't know if she actually went eek, but something like that. And I stood there a little longer than I should have, and then I quickly closed the door. But I thought about that moment a lot for many, many years.
I mean, how they say when you're talking to a crowd, like imagine them naked. So when you're interviewing her, it's your first interview. You're like, I can imagine her naked.
I could imagine her naked, but I did tell her the story, and she didn't she didn't really remember, which I was kind of.
Wait. You said to her, I walked in on you and you were naked? Remember?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was true, and I was 9 years old at the time. It was not, it wasn't like, don't you remember, last year?
But I would just think she'd be like, now this is an awkward conversation.
No, it was. I mean, I think she was fine about it. She was.
That is hilarious. Yeah, thank God it wasn't your dad. That would be more awkward.
But he wouldn't have done it. He wouldn't have just.
Yeah, of course.
I just was like, oh boy, I can't wait to see her.
And you
saw I got more than I bargained for. And said,
that is
remember it.
You still remember it to this day.
Yes.
The first star you interviewed and the first woman you saw naked.
Correct. And
God. Yeah, I think this is great. So tell me about your experience with Anne and Kira and the other cover stories you wrote. Any similarities between them?
I just talked to her briefly on set. I think that was for the Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
And there were a bunch of other
all the artists. Right. Okay.
Who I spoke to. So that was not a real cover story.
It was her first one, and I don't even know if there was really a movie peg. It was more
I think it was the Wizard of Oz thing. And that actually, I really enjoyed writing that.
So Anne, did you write for her first cover story? Or maybe it was the second. The first one was for Brides Wars.
The first one I did with her was for what we call Love and Other Drugs.
Oh, right. Okay. So, and then you did Les Mis.
And then the second one was Les Mis. And
okay.
That was a fun piece to write. I got to be on the set and watch her shoot. And I actually liked the movie. I'd always hated the musical on stage. I really hated it, but I liked the movie. And she was good in it. And she was extremely sort of generous with her time.
Yeah, she's great. And she was acting for so long. She was doing all of those Princess Diaries, I think they were called. So she's always been super professional. And I remember when she was young, when I was out in LA at a restaurant, and she would run up to me and said, "You're Jill Demling, right, from Vogue?" And I was like, "Hey," she was young and just following me around. I was like, "Okay, bye." And now when I see her, it's so great because she really is just very professional and enthusiastic. I always like the smiley actresses that are just always
she does have big, strong theater kid vibes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember for that piece about Love and Other Drugs, I think Jake Gyllenhaal was her co-star, and I interviewed him, and he said, yeah, she's like that girl who's in high school when the cast list for the school play goes up, she's elbowing her way up front to make sure she got the lead. And and I think that captures something about her. She has high school theater queen bee vibes.
Absolutely. Like a older Leah Michelle type of thing.
Yeah, maybe not quite as brassy
Yeah.
as Michelle,
Yeah.
but also just a sweetness too.
Exactly. And then Michelle Williams, I was thinking about it the other day that the first Anne Hathaway cover story was supposed to run February because we were supposed to have Michelle Williams for January. And John Powers was going to write about Michelle Williams. And he had one of the interviews before we did the photo shoot. And it wasn't too far from when Heath Ledger had passed. And he asked Michelle about Heath in that first interview and probably the first 15 minutes. And she shut down the interview and pulled out of the cover. So ever since then, I was always like, okay, people, we know Winona Ryder doesn't want to talk about theft. So if you have to ask her, please wait till you've gotten one full interview. We have the photo shoot, and wait till the end after you've asked every question you need an answer for till you ask that, because that can happen. And I just think that's something you read the room or you know the person and you know how to get the answers you need. And I know that Anna needs, and as journalists you want, but I always just made sure. And there's usually something very specific that's pretty obvious that we know not to talk about. But whenever I see that Anne Hathaway, I know it was supposed to be February, but it was later that year that we ended up doing her. But how was that experience with Marilyn? Because by that point, she had done a lot of covers for us. And
I mean, that was probably the best experience I had with doing a cover story, just because I admired her so much, and we really just hit it off, and we really became friends. And she was very open. I didn't have to bring up a lot of stuff. I didn't bring up Heath, but she talked about him. And if anything, I felt like she was too open in some ways, and I felt I had to protect her and not use things that I felt like she shouldn't. She said things I feel like I'm not going to put that in print because she's not going to be happy to see that. And I guess if I were a different kind of person, I might have thought, oh boy, I've got something here, but I didn't want to. And she was very open and friendly, and we, stayed friends.
Yeah, something interesting happened. Not interesting, it's disturbing now that I think back on it. And I didn't even think about it much at the time, and I don't even know if I shared it with you at the time. But you had already done the interview, and I got a call from her publicist saying that Harvey wanted to show her the film in the edit bay that night at 10 p.m. and that they had told him that you had to do your interview that night and that she was unavailable. And I said, but he's already done the interview. And she goes, I know, but he said he was going to call Anna, and Anna would definitely switch the interview with Adam so that she could see the cut of the film. And if I could please go into Anna and tell her that if he calls, to say it was the only night you could do the interview. So I was kind of confused when I walked in there, but he never called, but Anna just shook her head, yes. And I think we were all kind of in the dark, and, obviously everything was revealed later, and you can see why that happened. But
she did not want to be in a room alone with him. And I think it was pretty well known he was a pig. I don't think that it was as known to the extent that he was criminally a rapist. But certainly people knew that he was a pig who tried to use his power and to get what he wanted from women. And
because there's always something, it was like a symbol that would show up, and it showed up 3 different times, and it was Nobu sushi platter. His team would always ask, where is the fitting going to be, or where are you shooting? And we would always say it's a closed shoot. But somehow that sushi platter came when we were shooting her in the acting studio. It just showed up there, it just sat there. No one touched it. She didn't touch it. It never even got open, but it was just such a weird little thing. But I know I've had you on for so long, but I just want to ask you a couple more things about these fascinating actors. Just a few words to describe what it was like to interview them, because these are the greats that I would be so starstruck to be in a room with. Alan Rickman.
Alan, it was delightful to interview him just because he was sort of as witty and, I mean, sharp-tongued, although kind, as you would expect him to be as a character, and articulate about what he did, and charming and delightful. It was fun and easy to interview him.
Mark Rylance.
I was intimidated by Mark
Mhm.
Rylance because he's, I think, possibly the best stage actor alive, and also known to be a sort of peculiar fellow. So I was intimidated and worried and what he was going to think of me. And he turned out to be very genial and, I mean, a little peculiar, but not, no, I'm not talking about the play.
More in a Daniel Day-Lewis way, probably.
Yeah. Well, I've never interviewed, but yes, I'd be terrified to interview him.
Yeah. Bill Nye.
Bill Nye. Boy, how these English guys are all great. I mean,
I know.
funny and charming and articulate and up for talking about anything. And then I remember I assumed he wouldn't remember me, but I saw him at some screening and he came over, threw his arms around me, like a great guy. I mean, these were all easy and fun interviews.
How about Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Philip Seymour Hoffman was a slightly tougher interview because he was so thoughtful. And so
He was incredible in Death of a Salesman. I mean,
yeah, he was very thoughtful, but it took a little bit to sort of draw him out. But once I did, he really spoke beautifully about what he did. And certainly, I think in his performances and in talking to him, there was a deep melancholy that I sensed, but also a sweetness and a real, just a genuineness. That's what came across.
James Earl Jones.
James Earl, professional. He was a professional. He asked my questions. He answered them in ready to go quotes and friendly. But I mean, he's done it a million times. And I wouldn't say it was the most in-depth interview I've done, but he knew what he was doing. He was friendly. And yeah, it was easy.
Last one, James Corden, when you were interviewing him. Was he funny?
He was funny, and he seemed so delighted at what he considered his good luck. I don't think he's someone who has a lack of belief in himself. I think he has a tremendous belief in himself and his talent, and he seemed genuinely tickled and delighted to have found himself in the spot of about to become a star here in the United States.
Amazing. I think it's just important for all my guests to kind of give some words of wisdom to those listening, especially in such a changing world. We know that magazines are going extinct, and there's probably a lot of kids out there, young Adams, who are writing school plays in hopes of writing for a magazine and doing even a little bit of what you got to do. Any advice to them?
Well, I mean, I don't remember who said this, but I think it's absolutely true that to succeed, there are 3 qualities and you have to have 2 of them. Better to have 3, but you have to have 2. Let's see. They are to be extremely good at what you do. It's number 1. The second is to be a really nice, friendly, and easy to work with. And the third is to just always turn your work in on time. Now,
you have 2.
I have 2. I do not have the third. I'll leave it to people to guess which one I do not have. But I mean, if I was a nice guy who couldn't write, well, forget it. And if I could write but was an asshole but turned things in, it would not have worked. So I am lucky that I'm generally a pretty nice guy.
Yeah, you would have had to be Shakespeare to be an asshole and be late.
And be late. And so I think that is just to make sure that you've got at least 2 of those covered.
That's awesome. And looking back, is there any advice you'd give to your 20-year-old self or anything you'd do different? Or are you pretty happy and
No, I think that the advice I would give to myself and to anyone is to really don't say like, oh, can I do this? But do it and find out if you can do it. Don't overthink it ahead of time. I did a lot of overthinking, and I think it is way better to aim too high and to miss the mark than to not give it a shot. Also, the people who have the chutzpah, the nerve to ask for what they want, to go for what they want, they get it.
They get it.
You also have to be good, but there is no profit in not, I would say, not believing in yourself, but even if you don't believe in yourself, act as if you do.
Yep.
That's what I would tell myself.
Awesome. Okay, so at the end of each segment, I ask everyone the same 7 questions. They're rapid fire questions. It's just one or the other. Okay. They're very random.
Okay.
You're going to be like, what?
All right. I'll do my best.
AM or PM?
AM. I wouldn't have said that a long time ago, but I'm an AM guy.
Uber or Subway?
Subway.
Book or film? Or theater, I guess.
I'm going to say book.
Sweet or spicy?
Oh, spicy. That's an easy one.
Spots or stripes?
Stripes.
Top or bottom?
Well, that's. I'm just going to go for top, no matter. I mean, I just think in any situation, for me, that's the way to go.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Adam. This was so awesome.
Thank you. And if you need something else, just let me know.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that's our show. Thanks for listening to Going Rogue. And be sure to like and subscribe. Today's show is produced by me and Maddie Rosenberg at Radio Free Rhinecliff with assistance from Maddie Kelly. Special thanks to David Vo for our great graphics and Taras Romanov for our epic theme music. See you next Friday.